Welcome to Recovery His Way. I'm your host, Tom Reynolds, and today I'm with a very special friend, Matt Reynolds. Matt, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Matt happens to share the same last name. I know a couple of weeks ago I interviewed my son, Andrew Reynolds, and Matt and him are good friends. Matt's not my son, though I guess if I could have another son, Matt would be the great one to have. So it's good to have you here today, and I appreciate all that you and Andrew together have been doing out here. And I know what I really wanted to think about today or hear your story about is that I know a lot of people listen to us and watch what we're doing and ask the question, how can Christians get involved with helping this population really make a difference in the lives of hurting people? And not necessarily just addicts, but just how do you get engaged with people who are suffering, people who are struggling, that type of thing. And so I think your journey is an interesting one, and I wanted you to kind of share it with us. So I guess the first place I wanted to kind of begin is maybe just give us a little bit of background, your story, your spiritual journey, kind of what brought you up to the point that you got involved with His Way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to share. Really, it kind of goes back to kind of how I was raised. A lot of this, I've got a great mom and dad and a brother, and, was really just raised in a good family. My dad, actually, and this is a big part of my story, my dad is actually a lifetime in law enforcement. So, he spent a lot of years out in the community serving, second shift, late at night, third shift, didn't maybe sometimes, growing up didn't see as much of him, but knew what he was out there doing, protecting our community, doing a lot of good things. And I think in that he saw a lot of hurting too. And so he shared a lot of that with me. So I just was really I grew up in a really good environment to where, my parents loved me, played a lot of sports, involved in a lot of different things. And, as I kind of grew, my dad really got me into a lot of service projects early on. Something where, I can remember us going to the Boys and Girls Club and, building a playground or something like that. And, at that age, I'm just following dad around, just doing some things. And same thing with Partnership for a Drug-Free Community. I was doing that at a really young age. And what's really cool, and the reason I share that about my story is that as I kind of progress into, a man with my own kids and a wonderful wife of my own, I really kind of see that some of those things were kind of the building blocks of when I really just kind of started to care for people and care for the people in our community and kind of follow my dad's footsteps, on that. So it really says a lot. Now, my spiritual journey really started when I met my wife, Rachel. She's my high school sweetheart. We met, actually started dating at 15. Oh, wow. So she's been a big part of my life. She is the reason for my faith. She brought me, into the church as a rough and ragged, high school kid, and really kind of showed me what it means to love Jesus and to love other people. And I always say, she took a big chance on me, so I definitely can reciprocate that to other people. So
well, sounds like the chance paid off.
Yes, it did. It did.
I guess it's interesting that you bring these two things together. So I want to make comment to what you just said. On one hand, you grew up with a family who is very community-oriented, very socially active, those kind of things, in serving kind of ways. Your wife, on the other hand, or a girlfriend at the time, kind of brings you into this Christian community kind of thing. Yeah. How have those things merged together in terms of impacting, the kind of things you've been involved in, and how you have integrated those two ideas into how your family now operates in serving the community?
Yeah, I think that it means a lot to me because they're both kind of unique in themselves, and then as we brought them together. And the truth is a lot of that kind of started coming together for me, in college. I basically, you take your raising, you take your relationship, and you go out to a place that you've never been before. So I really started seeing a lot of growth in that. Made a lot of mistakes in college, but met a lot of great people and a lot of great friends. And so I think it's interesting because I really have I'm very passionate about my faith and want to try to share the good news of Jesus. And I think the reason that is because I've got there's a lot of wonderful people that have been in my life, that have impacted me. But really the part where I really had kind of found my faith, was being around just great people of the church, great community, people who really cared about you and wanted to see see you good, do good. And the relationships that we built, at Auburn, and, young married, we just, those relationships are what really kind of helped strengthen my faith and know.
Did you and your wife go to school together?
We did. We both went to Auburn University. We were there for 4 years. We actually were married our last year in college, and so that was really something for us we really had to kind of come together. And we were living in a college town, trying to be a married couple. And Jim Brinkerhoff was an amazing part of our early parts of our ministry. We took his premarital counseling class, and so it was just really good. I just felt like God was really kind of guiding me along the journey, because he just put so many impactful people in my life, and not necessarily knowing exactly what to do, as a young married guy, just trying to look to people like that to just help me, try to look to people who would be able to set a good example. So It's been great.
So obviously growing up in that, and the faith that's driving that, so you have kind of the experience of being involved in the community, and then the spiritual part kind of being that motivator to continue to drive that. I know your wife's been supportive, and I know your kids have been involved. What brought you to get involved specifically in, recovery, addiction ministry, men particularly? How did you get involved with His Way? Why did you choose that path?
Yeah, I think anytime, people land in this position to where you spend quite a bit of time in the recovery community, people tend to ask that question, why? How in the world did you get into this? Well, really for me, I think it was a mixture of just really growing up around people who serve the community, and knowing really what God says about, helping other people. God is one of the greatest blessings I feel like He's given me, is just to hopefully be a spirit of encouragement to people. And so there was a point in time, probably about 3 years ago, when, I felt like, I was probably checking a lot of the right boxes. I was doing a lot of things that, men in our Christian community would say, hey, thumbs up, you're doing the right thing. You're bringing your family to church. You're, you're serving at the church. You're doing a lot of the right things. But there was just this big void missing, of where I just felt like I wasn't really serving people the way that I felt like, God was really calling me to serve. And so, through something as simple as CrossFit, my wife and I got into CrossFit about 4 years ago. And it's something that was great to us, but really right in the middle of that, when probably I was in some of the best shape of my life, I kind of started looking around and was like, this is really kind of, a lot of this is self-serving. A lot of this is just, us checking the health box and saying, we're doing good. But what are we really doing for other people? And so that's really where it all started. God just really put it on my heart to try to, engage in something along those lines. And I knew Andrew from high school. He talked a little bit about that last week. He was a guy that I just thought so highly of, even in high school, what little bit I got to talk to him, and it's just been really amazing to see kind of how God's brought us back together through this ministry. And so, we get together. I tell him that, I'm really, praying hard for God to help, to use us in this situation. And, the rest is kind of history. We've been up here, serving in different capacities, coaching in the gym. The biggest thing is just trying to build a relationship with these guys.
Right. Yeah, I love the fact that, you took something that you were interested in, that you had developed a passion for, and just kind of really knocked on our door and said, hey, what do you guys need? And can you use what I have? And I think that's important for those who are listening to us, and how so many times we think that we have to change what we're doing to connect to people who are struggling, but mainly it is what we're already doing, just sharing it with other people, inviting them into our CrossFit journey, or our nutrition journey, or our Bible study journey, or whatever kind of things we're doing. If we love hiking, inviting people who are struggling along with us on a hike, and just do the things that we already do, and just make our community bigger, instead of just like you said, me and my wife are doing this, but we're not really bringing a broader group of people in. And so I know you originally got started with the CrossFit thing. As you've mentioned, really it was more about relationships. I know Andrew talked about how, the thrust of it initially was kind of the exercise thing, but that lasted a short while, really, and then it became more about coming up here and just hanging out and visiting with the guys and that kind of thing. So as you've watched that kind of morph and change, how has that happened for you? And, what kind of things are you intentional about now? I mean, it would have been easy to say, well, we kind of did the CrossFit thing. It kind of went for a while and then it kind of faded.
Yeah.
And then I kind of fade in my interest with his way when the CrossFit thing fades. But instead, you kind of went in different directions. Sure. And so I'd be interested in kind of, how did you see that? How did you choose that?
Yeah, and I think what, the kind of the theme behind what Andrew and I have done over the last, really almost 3 years now is just never underestimate the power that God has to use you, right where you are. It's so funny to us, Andrew and I joke a lot about this is that, we literally started this ministry kind of coming in here late at night, hanging out with the guys in their free time, doing a little bit of CrossFit. That transitioned into being able to somewhat be welcomed into their houses, their safe spots, the time they had to themselves and to develop relationships. And then God decides, hey, let's take an opportunity to go to a coffee shop, to a local coffee shop, Angel Islands. And we basically did a Wednesday night kind of coffee and prayer theme, where we had the ability to, talk a little bit about God and our relationships and things we were struggling with, and then that gave us an opportunity to take the guys to church with us, and that was just such a fulfilling part of that ministry. And then I one of the coolest things that I always like to tell about that part of the ministry is that Andrew and I, there would be times when we would have maybe 2 guys, 3 guys, 4 guys, but we would sit at a little table, and then maybe it was a table of 2 or a table of 4, and our prayer always was, God, we pray that one day that you'll fill up the big table, which was probably a 10 or 12 person table. And we would look at it and we would pray about it, and we would say, God, if this is what you want us to do, then, fill the table up. And that's just what we saw over, it was in God's timing. He was able to bring people together in a really, really awesome setting. And right before, obviously we'll talk a little bit more about the table talk, but right before that kind of transitioned again, there were times when Wednesday nights we would have 12 to 14 people in the little coffee shop, and it was just a real blessing to see God work there. I'm
sure Angel appreciated the business as well.
Yeah, she did. Absolutely. Yep, we appreciate her.
The thing that strikes me as interesting about this too is that, now you guys, we'll talk about the tabletop thing in a second. Now you guys are, leading, teaching, you stand up in front of a group of 40, 50 people and teaching these guys on a weekly basis, bringing in, inviting other people to teach and share as well. And it's not where you started. You didn't start and say, hey, I want to be a teacher here. We started with being out in the garage that was a weight room and hanging out with them there, and then nurturing those relationships, and then kind of everything kind of morphing into this. I guess I'm interested in, how did you end up, how does it become a teaching thing? How did it become such a, thing? It's really the highlight of our guys' week, is they always look forward to Wednesday nights and look forward to that fellowship and what y'all are going to bring in a special way. And I watch Andrew as a dad, and for years I've been teaching, but Andrew's always kind of steered clear of anything close to that. Yeah. And now he's standing up there doing the very same thing. It's neat to see how that's grown and changed.
It has. And, and I just think, Andrew talks a lot about this. I love hearing his discussions on Wednesday nights about, purpose-driven life. Andrew brought a lot of that to me. There were a lot of things that I would do maybe to career building or family building or, things that I felt like were so important in life. And the more that Andrew and our relationship grew, we started talking more about like purpose in life. Like what are you really living for? Who are you really here on this earth to kind of help impact? And so that's kind of what I see in this transition is that, God's really given us a purpose here. And it's something that he and I talk about regularly during the week. Quite frankly, we're 2 really, really busy dads. And, this is not necessarily an easy service, but God calls us to sacrifice for what he wants us to do in life. And I think that's really important. That's kind of the drive for us is, we've really sacrificed a lot of our time. A lot of the things that we used to do, we quite frankly don't do anymore because our time is filled up with family and his way, which is a really good thing,
right.
and it's given us purpose, and it's really given us joy, and we don't worry about, as much about the jobs or how things are going. It's literally kind of changed my view on life. I mean,
right.
So.
Yeah, I love the fact that, in this season of life in which y'all's life is probably busier than it's ever been.
Sure.
And probably the busiest it will ever be. I mean, you go through school, you have a lot of downtime, a lot of free time and that kind of stuff, and you can kind of whittle away a lot of things and waste a lot of time, make a lot of bad decisions. You get in this time of your life when you have small kids, you got the sports things going on, the school things going on, trying to keep a marriage vibrant and healthy. You're building your career right now is the key time that you're really growing your career and advancing and really developing that. And now is usually the time when people are saying, now's not my time for ministry.
Sure.
My time for ministry may be retirement, my time for ministry may have been back in college.
Yeah.
But this time is my season for marriage and my season for my kids and that kind of thing. Yeah. And yet you guys have kind of chosen to intentionally engage in something and not say, well, this is just a season in which I don't really do much for the Lord because I'm working on my family. Sure. Not that that's not for the Lord, but so it's fascinating that this is the time in which, I guess one of the things I wanted to ask you about that was, how has that blessed you? Because you can listen to that and a person can listen and say, wow, man, that just sounds like, a lot of busyness, a lot of headache, a lot of hassle, a lot of frustration. How have you found engaging in ministry at this season of life? What's been the blessings for you in it?
Yeah, I think it's really blessed me more than anything. I mean, it's fundamentally changed, how I make decisions, whether that be, at work, caring about people, at work, the people who are hurting. Because we have people that are hurting all around us. It's not just here in this ministry. And I just think it just really changes when you see the people that are hurting and you see God's restoration in their lives. You know that you're living for something bigger than yourself. And that's really what has changed for me. And I definitely want to talk about a little bit about the relationship that it's helped with my marriage. And my wife Rachel is an amazing teammate in this ministry, because we always joke with the guys. We say, we've got the easy part of this ministry. We get to come up here on Wednesday nights and hang out with you guys. My wife is at home with 3 small kids and has been for 3 years of this ministry. I mean, she's an amazing part of that. And I think, my prayer, of course, is that, she and my kids both see, that this is changing Dad, that dad just thinks about things a little differently than he used to. It wasn't about, the things that he had or, the things that he was involved in. It now becomes more about trying to serve other people. So definitely that's my prayer, is that other people really see how this is changing me. So
that's awesome. I mean, the obvious external observation would be you don't have as much time with your family.
Sure.
But what we got to step back and look at is what's the spiritual benefit of the transformation happening in your life, and whether they get a better dad and get a better raising experience because of the things that you're allowing God to do in your life through this ministry. Well, we talked around the table talk thing, which we've started on Wednesday night. So I guess around a year ago, a little less than a year ago.
That's right.
But how did that get started for you? And what have you seen kind of the benefits to the guys at His Way as well as the benefits to you in this new Wednesday night? Maybe you can describe a little bit about what this Wednesday night thing is about.
Sure. Yeah. So Wednesday night, it's kind of a round table discussion. Andrew and I, Andrew does a lot more of the teaching than I do. He's definitely better suited for that. I feel like he does a great job with that. But we both jump in and kind of, team up to do this. But really what it's about is something that I think is very simply put, is that, we are in Christ community, and we're just creating intentional time to be able to share things with one another about what's going on in our life, the struggles, how God's blessed our lives. We talk so much about having a spirit of gratitude. And what's so inspiring to me is that, once you a lot of these guys may not even understand what you're talking about, right? But as you go into these certain conversations and we bring up these points and these topics, we every single week, and what's the thing is never changing is that the little bit of a devotional that we may give at the front end, we always leave time for discussion. And that's what's, I think, the most powerful part, is that it's a group of men that are able to sit in a round table and be able to talk about things that's really going on in their lives. And that to me is just a perfect picture of Christ's community, that we can, dive into people's struggles and their challenges, and we can just talk about, maybe how, God would, or Christ would have reacted to something like that if he were here, and what should we do as a group of believers to try to help people through these situations. So, the table talk helps me as much as it, I feel like it, maybe we help other people. It's been a great part of my life, and Andrew and I, and our friendship, it's been a really, really good thing. And so I hope that it continues to inspire the guys. The relationships that we've built there, I feel like are lasting, important relationships. And these are my friends, these are people that I care about, and I just think that it's sometimes we get so caught up on the outside, maybe whether it be in our churches or in our communities, we put our hands up a little bit, and we just forget that the devil's really at work. And when you pull him out of that situation, and God is really working through these men, you see God's restoration happening. It's really cool.
I know at times you brought your wife up here, or brought the boys up here to spend time and that kind of thing. Some people would think, is that a good idea? I mean, here's this group of 50 guys live up here who have either just come out of prison or jail or various things, and have obviously lived a very rough life, generally by their choices and actions that they've taken. And, bringing small children and pretty wives and all that kind of stuff up here may be kind of some might view as kind of a questionable choice. I guess I'm interested in how have you experienced that? Yeah. How does Rachel feel about being in this kind of an environment when she comes out?
Absolutely. Well, really, I've got 3 boys. They are my why in a lot of this. God has blessed me with 3 wonderful boys. I feel like it's my job to be, a dad who, continues to help them along, to show them humility and grace, and really kind of get them to a place to where they are truly the hands and feet of Jesus in what they do. And, I heard a really good lesson one night, and it was one of those where you go into church and you've got your notepad ready, and you think you're going to get the 5 things that you should do for your kids to be able to follow Jesus. And the guy just really steals the night and says, look, guys, if you want your kids to follow Jesus and to know Jesus and to love others, they've got to see you doing it. And that's just really stuck with me. I mean, that almost 3 years to the day, I heard that lesson, and a lot of it was wrapped into, he was a friend of, Bob Goff, whose, book Love Does. I read that book, while we were pregnant with our 3rd child. And I just really feel like that was God's, kind of guidance, into, what I wanted to be doing. But they are my why. I want them involved in this community because I want them to, really see, how to truly love people and how to care about people. And, one of the greatest things we did, for my kids was just recently, Andrew and I did a service project with the guys here at His Way, and we brought our kids, and literally, I went from, being a part of this community to, packing bags, and having my son up here doing that with me, and then us going down to the homeless community and dropping off food and things for them, and it's just that's why I do it. I mean, I want my kids to be a part of that. I feel like as moms and dads, and we're really called to really be able to show our kids the true the true things in life. And
that's and so many times in church, for instance, it seems like we get challenged about all these things we're supposed to do, but we don't always see clearly what it is. How do you do that? And we can be made to feel guilty that we're not doing it, but we're not even sure what it is we're supposed to be doing. That's so we feel a real disconnect there. And so what you're doing with your boys really gives, I think, a great avenue and pathway for them to express their faith, just like your family and Rachel did to help you kind of find that path as well.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess lastly, I just wanted to ask the question. A lot of people are listening to this and thinking about this. People who are familiar with His Way or other ministries like that. What advice would you have to Christians just considering trying to get involved in some way in ministry at the various points of life that they're at? What are some of the things that you'd suggest or encourage them with?
Yeah. Well, I think, I think we all kind of hit a place in life to where I think, the evil one is going to try to do two things. He's either going to try to distract you or discourage you. And I think when I really found this ministry, I was right in the middle of both. I was distracted by a lot of things that didn't matter all that much. And then just being so busy in life, you tend to get discouraged, wondering if you're really ever going to be able to do what you were kind of, what God was going to call you to do, kind of thing. We talk about what's your purpose, Well, my thought through this ministry is that, just intentionally seek out God's community. Seek out people that really want to see you do good and really want to see, you continue to kind of help other people and kind of be in a place to where you can really make an impact in somebody's life. And it looks so much different for a lot of different people, but I will tell you that it has to take intentionality because it's so easy in our busy lives to just keep doing what we think is the next right thing. And then all of a sudden we realize that we've woke up and we really just haven't lived a life of purpose. And that's just that could be a scary thing. And that's kind of where I was. And I just would challenge anybody that's, listening to this to know that, hey, I was right there in the trenches. I was a dad of, 2, a third on the way, a busy job, a lot of things that I put before God and before other people. And thank goodness he put me with Andrew and put his way ministry in my life and allowed me to really kind of shake off all that, have to do things and really kind of start focusing on things that were really important in life. So hopefully that's an encouragement to somebody. So.
Well, Matt, I know you've made a huge difference around here. A lot of the guys really connect with you. In fact, I had a counseling session yesterday, and they talked about how, Matt Reynolds really has made a difference in our life. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Yep.
And I know you're making a huge difference. I appreciate the intention, the purposefulness of it. Every time you walk through these doors, I see the passion that you come into this place with, and makes a big difference. And it really helps our guys really see somebody who they admire, who's kind of where they would like to be, and you can kind of show them how to get there. And I appreciate that, and appreciate all that you're doing for the kingdom and to bring the kingdom to His way.
Awesome.
If you'd like to know more about His Way, we encourage you to check out our website at hiswayinc.org. Thank you.